Out of the characters in Street Fighter, the most popular one who hasn't been put in Smash Bros., the third most popular character, purely from anecdotal evidence, is Chun-Li. So let's get into her character. Chun-Li is Chinese, and her name comes from the character for spring, Chun, and the character for beauty, Li. This means that everyone is saying her name wrong, but who cares? Character is made by Japanese people. Chun is an Interpol officer focused on taking down Shadow Lu, after M. Bison took down her father, and did some other bad things to some other people she liked. Eventually, after like 4 games, Chun, Ryu from Streets, and Jean-Claude Van Damme were able to defeat him, leaving her to pursue a life of teaching until the Season 2 characters came out and brought Bibson back to life. And that's Chun-Li explained. Just kidding. I like lore and the funnies, but not that much. Let's get out of who she is and start talking about how she plays. Characters are usually put into archetypes, community-supported descriptors to help simplify them for newer players and watchers to better understand them, to give guidelines on how to play them. And of course, I already talked about 2 of them just a bit earlier, but we won't be discussing those today. There are 2 characters in every Street Fighter game and 4 in most Street Fighter games. Ryu, Red Ryu, as well as Chun and Scary Ryu. And not only that, these 2 characters are never bad. You could even make the claim that they're always good. While there are 2 ways to categorize this guy, there isn't a popular way that's used to describe Chun. So what is Chun-Li? What is her preferred playstyle? Where do her combination of tools shine in comparison to everyone else? And don't worry, this guy will come back a bit later. In order to classify a character, we've got to understand the character. First up, what are her tools? The first thing everyone thinks about are special moves. Chun does have her Kikoken Charge Fireball, but in terms of fireballs, it's not the best. Charge limits where you can use it, while it doesn't have the speed and recovery of something like a Sonic Boom. It's a good option, just not enough to define her character. He also has her signature Lightning Legs and Spinning Bird Kick. All valuable options for combos, but again, these moves aren't distinct enough to define the character, and really aren't enough to define a whole archetype. So if the specials aren't what define her, then what does? I won't be going deep into her supers, so instead we'll move on to her buttons, her normals, her punches, kicks, and all the moves that don't involve quarter circles and Z's. If you do a direct comparison of her limbs with someone like Dalzim's buttons, they're not very long. But in comparison with the rest of the cast, Chun-Li has long buttons, and in order to quantify the quality of a button, length is one of the most important factors. If your button is longer than theirs, then your effective range is greater than theirs. If the 2 of you are here, your button hits and theirs doesn't. You can press, they can't. And Chun has some long buttons, giving her more room to play around with than the average character. But length isn't the only aspect of what makes a button good. Can the button cancel? Moves have startup, active, and recovery, but some moves have the option to skip the recovery frames, to cancel out of them into another move, usually a special or super, and in Street Fighter 6, a drive rush. But this is only on the move connecting. If you whiff, you don't get to cancel. Don't whiff. And the thing is, a lot of buttons and moves aren't cancelable. So even though DJ has some big long buttons, they aren't cancelable, which is why he's a bit more susceptible to drive impact. Long buttons are good, and if they're cancelable, even better. After all, Chun's primary game plan in Third Strike is to use her cancelable crouch medium kick to confirm into her powerful Super Art 2. So that's what makes Chun strong. Long buttons and long cancelable buttons. But I'm not done yet. There's one more factor that lends to a button being extraordinary. Cancelability is a big factor, but while it is binary, there's also another value that comes into play here. While these moves are all cancelable, they don't all have the same cancel window. Each cancelable move only has a specific number of frames that you can cancel out of them. Once you get past that cancel window, you're stuck with the recovery frames and your next move won't come out. This doesn't seem all that important, but it is. If a move is cancelable, but has a really small cancel window, it becomes unviable and can only be used in combo routes. The special moves you want to cancel into on hit are generally pretty bad to do on block, so you want to do your best to avoid something like this. In Street Fighter 6, crouch medium kicks universally had their cancel windows reduced, from around 16 frames all the way down to around 13 frames. That's why if you see players doing crouching medium kick in 5, they're canceling it into a special move on hit. But in 6, they're buffering a drive rush out of it. The window has become too small to consistently cancel on a hit. And back to the third strike point. Part of what makes Chun play like this is because of the gigantic 18 frame cancel window on her crouch medium kick. If she lands the hit, she's getting the super off. You want moves to have a big cancel window so that you can actually cancel out of them without forcing all of your focus on just this one aspect of the game. And this introduces a play pattern using this type of move, one that doesn't just take advantage of cancel windows, but relies on them. Throwing out cancelable moves, then reacting to if they hit or not, then confirming those hits with cancels into special moves or something else. Something commonly known as hit confirming. Single hit confirming. This is a hit confirm, and characters that have moves like these, relatively long, with large cancel windows, play with this as their strength. React to getting a hit, then pushing their advantage off of it. Quick side note, single hit confirms are not great in 6. Scaling on crouch medium kicks and the much harder hit confirm window mean that this isn't all too viable and limited to mostly stand heavy punch confirms. And they took 2 frames away from Chun's swift thrust too, so just pretend I'm talking about pre-nerf Chun. That would be a simple way to end it, but there's one more factor we have to go over here, and that is walk speed. Chun has pretty good walk speed. I talked about it briefly in the Honda breakdown, so I'll go a bit deeper here. Walk speed is important, really important. Button length is important, but if your walk speed is really slow, your character's potential offensive influence gets limited to just the button length. Whereas if you have a fast walk speed, you not only threaten the length of your buttons, but the space just outside of your button range. If you can quickly walk forward and then press the button, it essentially extends the potential range of all of your moves. They're more threatening because they can more easily get in your space. But walk speed isn't just good when on the attack. It can also be an incredible defensive option. The third part of the move, the recovery, is something that is very important in button selection. Now if your button connects, like I said earlier, it doesn't matter. But if it doesn't connect, now your opponent has all of these frames to punish you, what is called a whiff punish. But your opponent won't miss their moves on their own. You, as their opponent, need to force it out of them. And the easiest, most universal way to do that is to just walk out of their range. They whiff, then hit them. And if you have a fast walk speed, then this becomes even easier, and a lot scarier for your opponent to place their buttons. The better the speed, the easier and closer you can pull this off. The combination of the two make your character much more effective in the neutral. So it's the combination of both good buttons and good walk speed that help create this character archetype. The footsies character.
Footsies!
Also known as the mid-range character or the hit confirm character, there are a lot of ways to abbreviate this type of character, but I'll be sticking with footsies for this video.
Footsies!
Everyone does want to play this way. With punishing and hit confirming, it's considered both safe and skill intensive, but these characters do it better. They do it the best. They have the longest cancelable buttons, they have the biggest windows to confirm those buttons, and they have the best walk speed to get to where these buttons connect. Or do they? Chun is an example of a footsies character, but she's far from the only one. And while 6 doesn't have the clear examples that 5 did, Karin is the actual dictionary definition of this archetype, it still has these two guys, Luke and Ed. But neither of these characters have spectacular walk speed, and yet they can still play like this because their buttons are so good. Ed has the longest cancelable buttons in the game, probably, and Luke has the most disgusting crouch medium punch in the game. Even though these guys don't walk too fast, Ed especially, their buttons are good enough to make up for it and open up this playstyle. Though right now, Ed is played more as a zoner, playing full screen gives you options to check drive rush, but that's just the meta right now. And the inverse is also true. You don't need the best buttons in the game if you have good walk speed. Cammy and Akuma don't have bad buttons, but it's not close to what Ed can do. But they have the walk speed instead. If one of these two aspects is good enough, you don't need the other one. Some footsies characters rely on long buttons, while others rely on fast walk speed. And Chun has a bit of both. Footsies characters have their strength in the neutral, and the most interactive part of neutral, where everyone has the chance to outplay. You could argue that these characters are playing the game the most. After all, everyone needs to make their way in before they can get to skill looping in the corner. but I'm not here to make that argument. And these characters do it the best, even though Chun doesn't have a skill loop. Because while this is the backbone of Street Fighter, it isn't the only thing that matters. There's offense, defense, anti-airs, anti-fireball, and just so many other things that matter. And because of that, these characters lose out in other ways. Just because they're strong at footsies doesn't mean they don't have weaknesses. And now we get back to a question posed right after the fake out. Why are these two always good? For Akuma, there is a very simple, easy answer. But Chun is good because of her character strengths. Street Fighter changes every single iteration, and so a strength in one game may not really matter in another. Being strong at zoning matters a lot more in Street Fighter 4 than it does in Third Strike. But Chun-Li's strength is in footsies, in solid, safe, neutral play. Her strength is Street Fighter. And that's why she's always good. While the games change certain aspects, the core gameplay loop remains the same, and the core gameplay loop is where she's the strongest. Chun-Li is always good because her strengths transcend games. So if you want to get into Street Fighter and you can get over the brain blasts that are charge inputs, it's the same learning curve as everything else, don't get intimidated. Chun-Li is a very safe character to learn. Not only will she be in every subsequent Street Fighter, I almost guarantee she'll be good in every subsequent Street Fighter. And if it matters to you, maybe she'll even teach you to play the game in quote-unquote the right way.